What is it with these billionaires in these tubes? Huh? We got a billionaire or other rich people in a tube, a sealed tube. Look, because they want to see the Titanic? You can just rent it on VHS. It's a 2-cassette VHS tape, my dude. These billionaires got a tube to go look. They paid $250,000 each. $250,000. Some of you don't understand the concept of that amount of money. That is an okay house in Ohio. That's how much they just paid. They handed a guy, okay, and they got inside of him too. I cannot stress to you how they're like, it's a submarine. It's a submersible. It's a tube. It's a sealed tube. It's riveted shut. You cannot open it from the inside. It has no windows. There is one button and there's a screen. You're not even looking at the Titanic with your own eyes. You're looking at a screen that has the camera pointed at the Titanic. And the guy running the company is so dumb that he didn't even think to just fake going to the Titanic. You want to get $250,000,000? $250,000 from a billionaire. First thing, have a tube. Remember Elon? Remember Elon and his submarine idea to get those kids out of the cave in Thailand? You know, when he called the guy a pedo? That whole thing? Elon's smart idea, by the way, tube. Jeff Bezos, we're going to go to space. He built a tube. It's all tubes with these people. Every billionaire is obsessed with tubes. So if you want to rip off a billionaire, here's what you do. Hey man, we're going to go to the Titanic. Oh, that's great. Hop in my tube. Ah, no, there's no windows, but you can watch the TV screen. Lower it down, like just under the water. And make sure it jiggles. Oh, run into some undersea turbulence. Turn the screen on. Play the beginning of Titanic. Pull it back up. And go, there you go. There you go, billionaire. You saw the Titanic. And here's the thing about billionaires. Nobody tells them no. Everybody says they're so smart because billionaires just drop money around them all day. The only time they care about the money that they're dropping everywhere like idiots is when it goes to taxes to help us. So now they spend $250,000 to get into a tube, and now we have to spend millions of dollars on our navies of two nations to look for these goddamn idiots who just should have watched a VHS tape that was okay from a movie that is so old that Leonardo DiCaprio wouldn't date it.
All right, guys, so we have an update on the Titan sub story. The story about the sub that got lost while taking a trip to Davy Jones' lock. I meant the Titanic, okay? And unfortunately, it seems like that on the way to Davy Jones' locker, they got stuck in there permanently. And there's been a search mission that's been happening for the last 3 days for these individuals, 5 individuals, some of whom are billionaires. They paid $250,000 to take a tour on this submarine that seemed to be built in ways that were very, very, very shoddy. And I will show you guys a video of that featuring Ben Shapiro's commentary. Take a look.
Hi, my name is Stockton Rush. I'm the CEO and founder of OceanGate. Let's take a look at Titan. So we're coming into the sub. This is the only toilet available on a deep diving submersible. Best seat in the house. You can look out the viewport. We put a privacy screen in, turn up the music, and it's very popular.
It's a popular toilet, guys.
Control screen here, our sonar screen here, and we can put any image we want in the back. We've taken a completely new approach to the sub design, and it's all run with this game controller and these touch screens.
He's using like a Nintendo controller.
You press forward. If you want to go back, you go back. Turn left, turn right. He built this thing, go down, go up.
In his backyard.
Bluetooth, so I can hand it to anybody. And it's meant for a 16-year-old to throw it around, and super durable. We keep a couple of spares on board just in case.
Oh, a couple of spares.
Well, that's comforting. This is the second year we've been out to the Titanic. We went out in 5 8-day missions. We did about 10 dives to the wreck site of the Titanic, and we did an extra dive on an undiscovered reef.
Look at this thing.
Found.
I mean, look at this
privately
thing.
Funded,
He made it with like duct tape.
Operation, and we're funded by, we call mission specialists who help support the mission. So they take quite a bit of money to come and join us.
He like took a garden hose and hooked it up to like a bathtub.
Yeah, so that's Ben Shapiro's description. Now, after this sub got lost, there were numerous reports about safety issues. Okay, there was a video that went viral of the CEO basically talking about how he didn't want to hire old, experienced, ex-military white guys because they weren't inspirational enough, aka he wanted to save money, right? He didn't want to pay guys with actual experience to work at his company or to pilot the sub or whatever, because it would be too expensive. He tried to take shortcuts that it seems like ultimately is what led to this boat imploding, because new information is coming out basically suggesting that the boat or the submarine imploded because debris has now washed up, and they found debris that allegedly is of the landing frame and the rear cover from the sub, which suggests that a catastrophic event happened and it probably instantly imploded, and all the people that were on that submarine are likely dead. Okay, so with that being said, I actually want to go ahead and play this clip from Sky News of the update on this sub and what they found, because it seems like this is coming to an end. This story has come to an end. So let's react to this.
Good evening, and we begin with breaking news. And the US Coast Guard says a debris field has been discovered by a remote underwater vehicle searching the Atlantic for a missing submersible. We understand that the debris includes parts of the missing vessel. Earlier, officials predicted that the oxygen supply on board the Titan ran out at 8 minutes past 12 this afternoon UK time. 5 men, including 3 Britons, are on board the vessel. Now, in the last hour, we've been talking to David Mearns, a search and rescue expert, who also knows 2 of the men on board the Titan, and he has been talking to us in the last few minutes about some information, David, that you have, and that seems to suggest, and it's information from out in the Atlantic, and it is information that says that this debris field is part
it's being
of
relayed
the
from
Titan.
the ships.
So what are you hearing?
It's being relayed from the ships to the president of the Explorers Club, who's been across this entire thing for the past several days, that what has been found in terms of debris is the landing frame and also a rear cover. So it means the actual hull hasn't yet been found, but 2 very important parts of the whole system have been discovered, and that would not be found unless it's fragmented. It's come apart.
So this picture here we're seeing now, that's the landing frame you're talking about.
At the bottom, yes. And it sits on that, it's bolted to that, and that's how it docks itself into the launch and recovery system. And then the back sort of like fishtail shape, that's essentially what we call a fairing. Inside of that will be electronics and all sorts of things, and that's a fairing just to make it smooth. It's a cover that was bolted, but it comes off, relatively easy. So if the fairing is off and the frame is off, well, something very bad has happened to the entire structure.
Right.
Yeah, so again, this is, I guess, what they call the fairing. That's the back part that they found. So that's the rear cover. If you guys remember in that video I showed you, and this is why I showed you the video, with Ben Shapiro's commentary, that has electronics behind it, right? So I guess that's the electronics that control the boat. Obviously, that needs to be covered so that, it doesn't get flooded out with water. Again, the fact that that's off definitely means something devastating happened, because that means at the very least water got into the sub, okay, got into the electronic section of the sub. And this is the landing frame, okay, which both of those things are off, which basically implies that this sub basically imploded or disintegrated or in some way, which again is very bad news.
Right.
So on the news that we have yet, they haven't found the hull of which the men are inside.
But what does it suggest, the information you're getting now, what does it suggest to you that has happened?
Something catastrophic. These things are not, they're not connected to the rest of the frame or the structure just by, masking tape. They're bolted, there are many bolts. There'll be an important part of the structure.
Which means that basically, in a nutshell, the fact that these things are off means that, again, something catastrophic happened. It means that the whole thing probably disintegrated or fell apart at one time, and these people probably instantly died because being that low in the ocean, yeah, you're gonna have instant death. Which, I mean, I guess you could argue from a philosophical, maybe even a moral standpoint, that may be the best case scenario, right? Rather than to die at the bottom of the ocean in the wreckage of the Titanic in deep darkness as oxygen runs out, which I guess, you know, there's all types of crazy stuff that can go down in that type of scenario, right? Like, that's super scary. I mean, that's like being buried alive. I mean, the submarine imploding is from a death standpoint in terms of how you would rather go. This is probably the most painless and quickest way to go if this is in fact what happened, which, again, it seems like the evidence that we have now suggests that that is what happened, which, you know, again, is crazy to think about, especially how there allegedly was like a 19 or 20-year-old, a young person on this submarine, which I think is reckless and irresponsible to take somebody that young on a trip like this, because, again, this just seemed very dangerous, right? It seemed very dangerous.
The whole weight of the hull, which is the heaviest bit, is resting on that frame. So the brackets that tie that frame to the rest of the hull, you can see those rings around it, are key structural elements of this configuration.
Right.
And for that frame to be separated from the hull is not good.
And what was the other bit?
The fairing, the thing that says Ocean Gate Titan.
Right.
So that's just the shape that they probably made because it looks cool and looks like a fish and looks, sort of marine-like, but it's a fairing. It's a cover that comes off.
Right. Now, this is information not from the US Coast Guard, where
Correct.
we are getting most of our information. This is information you are receiving. For just explain to me how this information is coming to you. So this is from people in touch with rescuers.
That's right.
Or recovery workers at the scene.
Or people who are getting the information pretty much firsthand. And I've asked them, so they haven't found the hull yet. And all they come back is that's it so far. So again, listen, we don't want to be doom merchants here and predicting the worst when it hasn't happened, but
you got a couple things going on here. They've already said they run out of oxygen. Okay, so if they're down in the ocean, they're definitely out of oxygen. Okay, I mean, that's what they say, unless something else happened where, you got into a Hunger Games scenario where you're basically, turning on the people in the sub because you want to preserve oxygen, right? There's 5 people in there. There's a limited oxygen supply. You get a scenario where it's like, okay, well, this person's breathing up some of my oxygen, right? And people might be looking for us. Sometimes you got to make those decisions. I hope that's not the case. I'm just saying, this doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all.
We know the terminology that people use, and the Coast Guard wouldn't be using debris, and they wouldn't be reporting that from the scene unless this wasn't good. And from just looking at that and understanding how that structure is built together, if those two components are no longer connected to that hull, then something very drastically bad has happened. Then,
and the image we're also seeing is of the vessels, the marine traffic in the area, and presumably the search goes on for other parts of the vessel.
The 4, right where it says RMS Titanic, those 4 blue dots, those are the 4 key ships. 2 of them are diving with 6,000-meter ROVs. That is the Horizon Arctic, and that had the ROV that apparently found it, the Ulysses.
So the arrival of these ROVs today,
yes,
and they went down this morning. This is what has changed things.
That's right. That's right. And they weren't on scene till today. The previous ships, and this is what was quite frustrating yesterday, 2 other ships had ROVs on board, but despite what we were hearing from the Coast Guard briefing, I don't believe they ever reached the bottom. They were never searching on the bottom. And they were also searching about 2.5 miles to the east of this location, where they were focused were on these apparent tappings. Well, now we know that that wasn't real. That was spurious. And today, when the true deep diving ROVs arrived, the 6,000 meter ones, on board the French vessel Atalante, and also on the Horizon Arctic, they all centered on Titanic. And that told me that they had gone to a new location. They had given up on this position where they thought they had heard tapping. They're now going to the most likely location. When these subs dive, these tourist dives, almost anybody who comes on Titanic, what they want to do, the classic Titanic experience, is to come up on the bow. So you start from outside of the debris field, you dive down, and then you approach the bow and you come up to the pointy end of it. And it gives you that thrill of seeing the bow of Titanic, which is the best looking part of it. It's also the safest way to approach the wreck because you're not going through this field of wreckage. You're coming up to the biggest part of the ship.
Wow. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. I mean, again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it seems to me that this is the result, right? This is the end. Like I said, they'll probably find the main part of it at some point since they found that. And I don't think that we're going to get good news, but we'll see. They're going to have more information for us soon, okay? But I just want to give you guys an update because, again, it's not really looking too good. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.